So I hope you guys are able to see my screen.
Yes, Rahul.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get started. Before we start, do you guys have any questions to discuss? Okay, if not, then we can get started and we can take the questions in between. Okay, so yesterday we have seen a little overview on what exactly is Selenium. That Selenium is not a tool, it's basically a project which is developed in multiple languages. Now, why multiple languages? Because initially Selenium, when it was started, it was used by developers. Now, developers can come from any background. It's not like everyone is a Java developer. If let's say Selenium was started in Java initially, so when like it was launched in the market, everyone is not a Java developer, right? So some people are coming from Python background, some are coming from C# background. So what they did, they migrated this library into multiple languages. So that is the reason when we say Selenium has got a multi-language support. So multi-language support, that means that this project is available in multiple languages. Whichever background you're coming from, you can use that language and you can automate your website using that particular language. You need not to learn Java. It doesn't mean that if my website is built up in, let's say, PHP, then I'll be learning Selenium with PHP. And then if it is built up in Ruby, then I'm going to learn Selenium with Ruby. It doesn't mean that. So Selenium is not dependent on the language of your website. So Selenium does not even interact with the language of the website. It only interacts with your HTML components, right? And HTML remains same in any website that you launch. So HTML remains the same. HTML syntax remains the same, right? That is what multi-language support means. And on the other end, if we talk about like the other thing which makes Selenium like best as compared to other automation tool, let's say the competitor of Selenium was QTP UFT. If we talk about UFT, which language is supported by UFT? Can anyone tell me which language QTP UFT supports?
VB
VB script. So VB script is the major language that is supported by QTP UFT. And if we talk about VB script, which operating system supports VB script?
Microsoft.
Microsoft. It's a language of Microsoft, only it runs on Windows. It means if you are automating some application on QTP, you can run it only and only on Windows. Whereas if we talk about the current industry, the client can use Mac, it can use Linux, he can use any operating system. And what he wants that his product should be fully functional on different operating system. So that is the reason why we do cross-browser testing, we do cross-platform testing. And if we are working on QTP UFT, then we are restricted only and only on Windows. So that is what, like if we were talking about the features of Selenium, that it has got a multi-OS support. So it's not Selenium. If we talk about Selenium, like since we are using Selenium with Java, so Java is what platform independent, right? If you have ever installed Java, the very first message you're going to see is that 3 billion devices runs on Java. So be it Windows, Linux, Mac, Solaris, iOS, Android, any operating system you name is supported by Java. And if we are running our Selenium code in Java, we can execute that code in any platform we want, and that too without any license. So this is one of the best thing on Selenium. So it has got a multi-browser support. You can work on like almost all major browsers. You can use any language, any popular language, and you can use any operating system, and you can run your test. But the test will only be executed on websites, because Selenium is only for web-based application testing. But we have already seen that since it's a Java library, so we can integrate other Java libraries as well with this project. And it's a Java library, it's a jar file. Similarly, we have jar file available for mobile automation, that is APM. API automation, that is rest assured, database testing, that is any JDBC API you can integrate. So all these things you can integrate in one single project, and you can automate all these projects without paying any license while integrating with Selenium, right? So this is one of the best thing with Selenium. A lot of integrations that we have discussed can be done easily with Selenium, right? And these are the components: ID, RC, WebDriver, Grid. So ID is for record and play. RC was the first coding component. So coding component, as in this was launched in 1.0, and the initial as I'm talking about, like everything cannot be handled using record and play, so they created this coding component. And in this, what they created is a major class called as default Selenium. So this was the only major class at that point of time, and all the functionalities that we need to automate a website was there inside this default Selenium class. Functionality, as in, let's say what we need to do, like with this class, we want that whenever we are testing a website, first thing is that we need to launch a browser. So they have created a method called as open. Prior to open, there's a method called as start. So when you call this start method, it is going to launch a browser. After launching a browser, you need to navigate to a website. So there's a method called as open that web page. After opening the web page, you want to get the title of the page. So there's a method called as get title. After that, you want to click on any button, link, there's a method called as click. After that, you want to type, there's a method called as type. So one by one, they have created huge collection of methods, and they have kept all the methods inside this default Selenium class. So as an end user, if I want to automate any website, what I'll be doing, I'll be using this default Selenium class, and I'll be creating an object of this class by saying default Selenium, let's say Selenium equal to new default Selenium. And then when I say Selenium dot start, and if I run this much code, it is going to launch a browser. After that, if I want to open a website page, I'll say selenium.open, and I'm going to provide http google.com. After that, I want to get the title of the page, selenium.getTitle. I want to click on some button, selenium.click. I want to type some there, Selenium somewhere, selenium.type. This is how we used to work with the very first version of Selenium. So just by calling the methods one by one, it looks very simple. No complex coding required, right? Even if you're not good in coding, you just know how to create an object of a class and how to call method. You should be easily able to work with Selenium. So this was the coding part initially when it started, right? But how this code is communicating with your browser. So when I run this, a browser launches, right? And navigation happen. It start clicking, typing, performing different actions on the web page. But how this communication is built? What is the mode of this communication? What is written behind the architecture? How my code is interacting with the browser? Because this is just a plain Java code. How it is performing the action. So that was what it was written in the architecture of Selenium 1.0, that Selenium 1 actually injects JavaScript on your browser. Now, JavaScript, you must have heard about what JavaScript is another language, but where it runs, where JavaScript runs, it runs on the client end. Client end as in on the front end, on the UI, on the web page. Let's say it could be any web page. If I open google.com, so let's say I want to perform click over here. I want to perform click over here. Even if I'm not using Selenium, if I'm a JavaScript developer, I can write some script that will perform click, type, all the actions on the web page. Because JavaScript runs on the front end, on the UI part. And that is what they have written in the architecture. So what they did when these methods were created, these methods were actually injecting JavaScript on the browser. Right, so there was a JavaScript code written, and if I talk about JavaScript code, it looks something like this: document.get element by id dot click, something similar to this, right? And what they did, they just added this JavaScript in the click method. So ultimately, you are calling the click method. But what is happening behind the scene? It is injecting JavaScript and performing click on that particular button. As an end user, you don't know that it is injecting JavaScript or what. As an end user, you are just calling a method like this, that is selenium.click. But ultimately, it is injecting JavaScript on your browser. That is how the architecture was designed. And in order to inject this JavaScript, there's something called as Selenium standalone server. This is what you need to start in order to inject the JavaScript. This server is nothing. This server comes along with the jar file. Even if you talk about the jar file that we downloaded yesterday, we downloaded this jar file. So how to start a server? I'll open up command prompt and I'll say java-jar Selenium. Give the name of the jar file. So the jar file name is Selenium server 4.1.2.jar, and I press enter. So right now it is not going to start because this jar does not belongs to Selenium 1. So when Selenium 1 was there, this is how we used to start the jar file. Now this jar as well is an executable jar, but when we start using something called as grid, then we'll be making a use of this jar to run our hub, run our nodes, right? Configure different things. You can see router, session queue. So these are some of the things. Something like if I show you, if I just write stand alone over here, then this jar is going to run, right? But right now there are some issues. No driver found. Okay, this is something else. This has to be like we have to configure something called as a browser driver, which is not found on this particular path. No driver found on this path. So what is this? Don't worry about it right now. Once we start with Selenium grid, we'll be configuring all these browsers and other things, and then we'll be running this jar file. But let's come back to the architecture. Like when Selenium 1 was started, this was the architecture, right? So first, let us discuss about different versions. So what we are doing right now, we are discussing about different versions of Selenium, like Selenium 1, Selenium 2, Selenium 3, and Selenium 4. And what was the architecture behind it? So if I talk about Selenium 1, where the very first version was started, it was started around 2004 by a developer named as Jason Huggins. So the base architecture, as we discussed about, the base architecture of Selenium core library was JavaScript. All the test execution run on the browser with the help of JavaScript injection. And to support the same, we need to start Selenium server locally before we execute the code that we have written. Now, if we talk about the name Selenium, where this name came from? Anyone knows how the project name was kept as Selenium?
I just have an idea. It was something related to its competitor's name. I mean, to
Mercury to compete with Mercury. Yeah.
Yeah. So Selenium competitor is QTP. And at that point of time, QTP was a part of Mercury. Later on, HP acquired it, right? So if we talk about Mercury in general terms, Mercury is a poisonous element, right? In thermometers as well, we have mercury. So there was a saying, if thermometer breaks, if someone intake that mercury, then he's gonna die. So if someone intakes that mercury, we give him an antidote. That is what Selenium is, so that he may survive, right? So Selenium is basically an antidote to mercury. Selenium kills mercury. That is the reason they have given this project as the name as Selenium. So to end the market of QTP Mercury, and up to such an extent, they are successful as well. It's not just because of the cost. Selenium is free, Selenium is open source. There are n number of reasons behind it, which makes it unique as compared to QTP, UFT, or any other automation tool in the world. That most of the features we have already discussed about it, right? But if we talk about that version Selenium 1.0, the biggest drawback of this version was a limited library support and the architecture itself, which injects JavaScript. Now, if I talk about this library that we were discussing about, default Selenium class, this class was actually a collection of 100, 200 methods. That's it, not more than that. So let's assume if this method was designed by developer, right? Let's say if click method is not there, how can you click on a page or on a link or on a button or on an image? Same way, if I'm saying that there are 200 methods, but when I'm writing my test cases, I'm doing a lot of permutation and combination. If a method is not there in this library, then I cannot automate that particular content. I cannot automate that test case. So the library was very limited, just the collection of 100, 200 methods, not more than that. So many functionality, like people have, when they started using Selenium 1.0, they started facing a lot of issues due to this limited library itself. And not only this, the architecture itself, the architecture that is the JavaScript injection, that was one of the major drawbacks. So if I talk about the time 2004, 2006, which was the popular browser at that point of time? Can anyone tell me? IE, right? Internet Explorer. Till today as well, there are some old client applications which runs only on IE. They don't run on Firefox or Chrome, right? So at that point of time, the popular browser was IE. And if you know IE, then IE is like some browser which is very secured, a highly secured browser. It does not allow any third-party JavaScript to be injected onto its browser, just because of the security reason. Why? Because see, if I'm a JavaScript developer, I can write such a script that can fetch username, password, credentials from your browser easily, because JavaScript runs on the browser. So if, let's say, if you navigate to my website or if you click on anything, and if I've written some JavaScript in that JavaScript will going to inject into your browser and will going to fetch all these informations. So at times hacking code and all these things are also written in JavaScript. So IE, being the highest secured browser, it blocks the injection of JavaScript. Whereas if we talk about Selenium 1.0, so Selenium 1.0 injects JavaScript in order to execute things on the browser. And on the other end, IE blocks that JavaScript. So this was one of the major challenge that companies have faced. Like there was something in the settings of IE where you need to, let me see if I have IE browser over here, then I can show it to you. So this is IE. So in the settings, what we need to do is go to Internet option, security, and remove all these protected modes over here. So remove the entire security from the browser. Then you should be able to inject JavaScript easily. Now, there were some secured application where we have SSL certificates, some other security certificates added. So when you remove this security from IE and when you navigate to that website is not going to launch. So you must have seen some error when you navigate to the website that some bad SSL certificates are there. The site security is not trusted. Till today, we see these sort of errors when we navigate to different secured website, HTTPS website, which is having SSL certificates installed. If a proper certificate is not there associated in your browser, that website is not going to launch. So these were some of the challenge, which companies have faced while using the initial version of Selenium, that was Selenium RC, the very first version. the limited library, and the JavaScript injection, due to which like many things, many websites were not automatic, right? If I show you this, this was the architecture. So this is what the journey of Selenium. So Selenium 1.0 started in 2004, and this is how Selenium core was injected onto your browser itself. And you need to start this remote server, and this is your programming language. So it sends the request to the server, server injects Selenium core inside your browser itself, and then the application under test, that is your website, that is how the testing is performed on the browser. So all these challenges were actually recognized by one person whose name is Simon Stewart. So in 2006, he started another project parallel to Selenium, which is called as WebDriver. And where he started this, he was working as a lead developer at Google. So in Google itself, he started another project called as WebDriver in parallel to Selenium. He has seen that project. He has thought of overcoming all the challenges of Selenium and making a different library separate to Selenium and named it as WebDriver. So what all challenges that he overcome? One of the very first challenge was the architecture itself, the JavaScript injection. So what he did, he removed JavaScript injection completely from the architecture of WebDriver. And there was a very limited library, just default Selenium classes there. What he did in WebDriver, to support every browser, he has created different classes. In case you want to work on Chrome, there's a class called Chrome Driver. You want to work on Firefox, there's a class called as Firefox Driver. You want to work on IE, there's a class dedicated to IE, which is called as Internet Explorer Driver. Even to support Safari, Opera, or Android, he has created different classes. Not only this, he has created a huge collection of classes. In case you want to see what all classes are there in WebDriver, you can still find them in selenium.dev website. So where you go to download. So from here we downloaded WebDriver. If you go down, you will see Selenium client and WebDriver language bindings. If you go down, you'll see different languages. We'll see this Java one. This is what the API document is. If you click on this, click on frames, and here's the huge collection of classes. See, we talked about Chrome Driver class. This is Chrome Driver. If you click on this, it will show you this is a class Chrome Driver. If you go down, you will see hundreds of classes. And in each class, you'll find many methods added. Right? We'll walk through this documentation once we start with Selenium, once we start coding Selenium. This is the main document that we'll be referring. There is no other guide to Selenium. This is the only guide. You will find everything inside this documentation. This is what is called as the API documentation of Selenium. Right? So what he did, he removed the architecture, that is JavaScript from the architecture, and he has created a huge collection of classes, which then later on what they did, they have merged both the project Selenium and WebDriver into one single project. And officially in 2011, they launched another version of Selenium by merging Selenium 1.0 and WebDriver, and they call it as Selenium 2.0, which is called as WebDriver. So in July 2011, this WebDriver was officially launched. And many Google developers have contributed into the development of WebDriver. Right? So till today, as we have said that Selenium is an open source. So open source means anyone can contribute into the development of this project. So many developers, not only from Google, from Facebook, from Adobe, from big organizations, they have contributed into the development of this WebDriver project. That is the reason why it is very popular and very widely used in the industry. And ultimately, after ID, RC, Grid, they have created these component ID. They have kept RC as well. Why RC in 2.0? Because many companies have started using Selenium. Now, all of a sudden, you came up with WebDriver and you are saying that, okay, stop using RC and just move all your code to WebDriver. So over the night, it is not possible, right? So what they did, they have kept RC as well in the project. They have kept WebDriver as well in the project. So people who are using RC, they can just switch on to Selenium 2, and Selenium RC functionality should also gonna work fine. But they have supported this library only up till 2.44. And after that, they made it deprecated. Deprecated means that you can still use RC if you want to use, but we are not going to support any bug fixes. We are not going to do any more addition to this project. Ultimately, you have to move your projects to WebDriver. And later on, when Selenium 3 came into the market, they have removed RC from it completely. Now, if you talk about the architecture of Selenium 2, so if JavaScript injection is not there, so later, I mean, initially the communication between the code and the browser was done with the help of the JavaScript injection. Now JavaScript injection is removed from the architecture. Then how that communication is done? So if we talk about the architecture of Selenium 2, then it has got a direct native support to the Firefox browser. So initially when Selenium 2 was launched, they have given a direct support to Firefox browser, where Selenium API directly interacts with the DOM component of Firefox. DOM component as in, if I go to any website, let's say if I launch Google. So what is DOM? DOM is nothing, that is your HTML component itself. If you click on inspect over here, you will see the HTML part of your website over here. This is what we call it as DOM. So Selenium directly interacts with these components. And you see over here, these tags, these are HTML tags. Each single tag represent one single element on the page. Element as in anything that you see on this website, even this button, this search button, this image, this link, even a small dot on the website is basically an element. An element on a web is called as web element. So your DOM component consists of all these web elements. Each single tag is one single web element. If there are 500 tags over here, it means there are 500 web elements on your page. Now, it's not mandatory that all the 500 elements are showing up over here. Some are hidden elements as well, right? Depending on what logic they have written, what elements are showing up over here. But 500 tags means there are 500 elements on this page. And Selenium actually interacts with the DOM component directly with the Firefox browser, not with other browsers. Other browsers, they don't allow to interact directly with their browsers. For that, there was something that was created like a mediator between the browser and the client. The client is your programming language, right? Like I'm writing some code in Eclipse. So that becomes a client. This browser, this becomes as a browser. Now the mode of communication with other browsers like Chrome, like IE. So that communication was done with the help of some drivers, which were created by these browser vendors itself. Like if you talk about Chrome browser, Chrome is a browser which is developed by Google, right? If you talk about IE is developed by Microsoft. So these browser vendors, they have provided something called as browser executable files, their APIs, their browser APIs to WebDriver, so that the client, the class, the Java class can communicate, can send the request to those browser driver and those browser driver further sends the request to the browser. So there is no direct communication. Selenium is not directly talking to the browser. Selenium is sending the request to the browser executable file, which is provided by the vendor. And that browser executable is further sending the request to the browser. And this was done with the help of something called as JSON wire protocol. So in the architecture, they have created something called as JSON wire protocol, which is nothing, which is something that exposes the REST calls, the REST API you can talk about. So this is more like a technical stuff. Right now, you might not be able to understand what JSON wire protocol is, but once we start with WebDriver, we'll be looking at some examples around it. But if I show you in the architecture, this is how the architecture of Selenium 2 was created. So Selenium 2 was started, launched in 14 July 2011. And this version went up till 2.53.1. So initially native support for Firefox browser was there. And for other browsers, they have created a mediator between the browser and the language binding, which is called as JSON wire protocol. Right? So if we talk about this JSON wire protocol, the request is sent from this client to the JSON wire protocol. This request is encoded and then sent to your browser. All the actions are performed based on the request on your browser. Then the response is sent back to the JSON wire protocol and then to your Java client. The response is then decoded. Right? So now as the project was getting more and more popularity, and many CMM companies have started investing in Selenium in their automation project. So Selenium 3 came into the market with W3 compliance. Initially, when we talk about like Selenium 2, it was not W3C compliance. Now, W3C is something which are the standards laid out by World Wide Web Consortium. So any organization, even your browsers, they follow all these W3C compliance. This is because in case you have to use your browser in a company where all the security parameters, CMM organization, ISO certificates, all these things are there, whichever company is following all these compliance, they're not going to use your browser as it is. Maybe there's some loophole in your browser, right, which may gonna bring some damage to the application. So if they are using Chrome, if they are using Firefox, these browser should be fully W3C compliance. And now if we talk about Selenium, now we want that all the big organizations, they start using Selenium. So Selenium should follow all these W3C compliance as well. So that is what they have implemented in Selenium 3, because most of the big organizations have started using Selenium. So they implemented this W3C compliance and they have removed the initial RC architecture. So in Selenium 3, you will not gonna find Selenium RC. And they have removed the direct interaction of Firefox, DOM interaction, right, which was there in Selenium 2. So every browser now has to follow this JSON wire protocol. So what Firefox vendor Mozilla they did, they've created their own driver executable, which is called as Gecko driver. Right? We're gonna see what is Gecko driver, Chrome driver in our today's session as well. Why that is required. If you remember, yesterday I've added one exe file. So this is what Chrome exe file, Chrome driver exe. This is what Chrome driver exe. If I don't add this, my code will not gonna run. This is what is communicating with your browser. Similarly, all the browser vendors, they provide their own executable file. So Selenium APIs, they send requests to the browser driver using the JSON wire protocol, which encodes and then decodes the request to perform test execution on the browser. So that is how like Selenium 3 came into the market with more W3C compliance and removal of the direct support of Firefox and removal of Selenium RC. So in Selenium 3, as we discussed about, so 2.53.1 was the last version of Selenium, and then 3 came into the market and RC was removed, and we only have ID, WebDriver, and Grid. ID for record and play, RC for coding part. Initially, WebDriver for coding part. Initially, RC was there for the coding part. Then WebDriver came as a Java library. Not only Java library, multiple language support was there. So it is available in all major languages, right? What is Grid? We have not yet discussed about it. We'll be discussing about what Grid is as well, right? So if you see over here, there's the architecture. And Selenium 3 was launched on 13th October 2016 with these 3 components. And finally, we have Selenium 4 now, which was very recently launched in the market. So Selenium 4 officially launched on 13th October 2021. Now this version is fully W3C compliance, plus it comes with tons of new features, improved grid architecture. What is grid? We'll be discussing about it in some time. It has got some features which is called as a Chrome debugging protocol integration. So CDP features, CDP as in there are a lot of things that you can do in your Chrome browser. If you have seen these tabs over here, like you can go to network tab, you can see a lot of status, a lot of APIs being hit over here. You can check the performance of your application. So a lot of things are here, right? These are your Chrome dev tools. So your Selenium 4 has got capabilities to interact with your Chrome dev tools as well. Not just automating a website, you can do manipulations, like you can run your website on a slow 3G network. You want to see how my website will react when it is on a slow 3G network. You want to check your website on a mobile view. You can convert your browser into looks which actually going to look like an iPhone 6 or iPhone 7 or iPhone 11. You can change the view of your browser as well. And then you can perform your testing. So at times it happens I'm accessing my website from India. Let's say I want to check how my website looks when I access it from London. So these are the things which you can manipulate in your Chrome browser with the help of this Chrome debugging protocol features. So that is what is launched in Selenium 4. And not only this, if we talk about Selenium 4, it is fully W3C compliance, but it also eliminates the need of encoding and decoding the request sent by JSON wire protocol. So what they did in the architecture of Selenium 4, they have removed this JSON wire protocol entirely. So no encoding, decoding, no more JSON wire protocol is required. The client sends the request directly to the browser driver, and browser driver further executes the request on the real browser. So no more mediator in between, because Selenium is fully W3C compliance. Your browsers are fully W3C compliance. Your browser executable are fully W3C compliance. So a request is directly sent from the client to the browser driver, and browser driver executes that directly on your browser. So this makes it more robust, more stable, and more reliable. And even the performance is increased, because here we need not to encode or decode the request. Right? Don't worry about it if you're not able to understand what encoding and decoding it, because this is just an architecture. We are not going to deal with this encoding, decoding stuff. This is just about the architecture you should be familiar with. If someone in the interview asks you, please explain the architecture, what is there in Selenium 4, what was not there in Selenium 3. So explain me the difference in Selenium 3 and Selenium 4. So that is what you should be explaining. And this Selenium 4 gives a great support for cross-browser testing. because the direct communication is here. No JSON wire protocol. So at times it happens like while encoding and decoding requests, at times we might gonna face some issues like the thing is working fine on Chrome, but it is not working fine on Firefox. My code is executing absolutely fine on Chrome. Why it is not executing on Firefox? So that was due to this JSON wire protocol, the encoding and decoding of request all the time. Now that thing is not there in Selenium 4. So it has got a direct communication with your browser with the help of these browser drivers. So that's what the architecture of Selenium 4 is. And that is what the difference in Selenium 1, Selenium 2, Selenium 3, and Selenium 4. Right? So 1 was IDRC grid, 2 IDRC WebDriver grid, 3 ID WebDriver grid, and 4th ID WebDriver grid only. But no JSON wire protocol. And fully W3C compliance. Right? That is what Selenium 4 is. Now, what is grid? We have discussed ID, record and play, RC, WebDriver coding component. Now, what is this grid? Grid is there with all the versions. What is grid? Can anyone tell me what is grid?
I think you just told that it supports multi-browser access.
Multi-browser. Okay.
It's like a client server part, like server is the hub, and then we have the nodes where we execute the distributed parallel execution.
Okay. So you mean to say that grid is for parallel test execution?
Yes, like we distribute it on different nodes, like computers, it may be.
Mm-hmm. So it does it supports parallel test execution, or does it support the remote distribution?
Parallel test execution.
Parallel test execution. How about others? It's great for parallel test execution.
It's a remote server.
Remote server. Okay. How about other guys?
I think executing on a remote server. Yeah, parallel execution we can do on the same machine, same browser itself. But I think if we want to run it on different machines, on different browsers, then we can take help of grid.
Okay, so can't we use Selenium grid on the same machine?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, yeah. If hub and node are the same.
Okay.
But then it won't make any difference because we will be using the same resources in terms of memory and all that. So yeah.
Okay. So okay, this is about remote execution. So is Selenium great for parallel test execution as well?
Like Rahul, for example, we have TestNG where we can do parallel execution as well, but it will be only on the same machine. For distributed parallel execution, we use Selenium grid.
Okay, that's what the point is. See, parallel test execution task is not of grid. Parallel test execution is done with your TestNG framework. So if you have, like, let's say 100 test cases, if I run them in a sequence, first test, then second, then third, then fourth, let's say if I'm running it in a sequence, 100 test cases, execution gonna take, let's say, 1 hour. Now what I'll do, I'll configure TestNG in such a way that all the test cases will start running in parallel. Then it will save a lot of time. Maybe within minutes, your test case execution will be done. So parallel or sequential, how the test case will run, that is decided by TestNG, not by grid. Grid task is just to distribute those test cases to remote machines. Grid is something like this. We have a node and a hub architecture, something which is like this. And this, we have a main hub. We have multiple machines connected to that hub, which are called as nodes. So this is what like your companies, like, you know that, I mean, in your organization, one machine is connected to a different machine on the intranet, right? So one machine, you can start it as a hub. Other machines, you can start it as a node. This is node 1. This could be your Linux machine running Chrome on it. This is your node 2, which is like a Windows machine running Edge on it. This is your node 3, which is like a Mac machine running Firefox on it. And all your test cases are here on the hub machine. So when you execute your test cases, hub distributes those test cases for execution on the remote machine. Parallel or sequential, that is decided by your TestNG configuration. If they are parallel, at the same time, you will see all 3 machines, the test cases are being executed. If it is sequential, then one test case will execute over here, then the second will execute over here, then the third will execute over here. But grid task is just to distribute your test cases on remote machines, not to parallel run it. Parallel running is the task of TestNG. So this is again a unique component which you will not find in any other automation tool, right? Even QTP, UFT cannot support it because QTP only runs on Windows, right? But whereas if we talk about Selenium, it has got a multi operating system, multi-platform support. So this component is unique to Selenium only. And this is a very, very important component because at times you want to, like this helps you in automating your browser compatibility testing, right? In BCT testing, what you do manually, if you have 1000 test cases, you want to make sure that it is working fine on Chrome, on IE, on Firefox, on Linux, on Mac, on Windows. So how you test it manually? Same set of test cases, you will allocate it to your team. One will run it on IE, one will run it on Firefox, one will run it on Chrome, and the entire day they are executing the same set of test cases on multiple browsers, multiple machines manually. So grid actually automates this process. There is no manual interference. You just run it over here. Hub will distribute the test cases and it is going to execute it on multiple machines, multiple browsers, parallelly or sequentially, how you have configured it. Right? So that's what the fourth component, that is after IDRC WebDriver, we have grid for remote test execution. So we're going to see grid practically as well. So that is what all these 4 components are. And now we're going to get started with the configuration part once again. And we'll see how to execute our test on different browsers. So yesterday, what we did, we installed JDK as in Java 1.8. These are the prerequisites to get started with Selenium. Then we have downloaded Eclipse. And then we have downloaded Selenium jar. This is the only thing that is required for the time being, but obvious, the browser executables. So what are these browser executables? How to get it? That we're gonna see today, right? So let us do some configuration. So we're gonna do only the configuration part today. We're not gonna start with the programming part or the coding part, right? Because people who don't know Java, so they'll be moving to the Java sessions from next weekend. And then the rest of the people who have already completed Java will be continuing in this batch. And from next weekend, we'll be starting automating websites, starting all the code and doing all the stuff, right? So let us open up Eclipse, where we started yesterday. So let us open up batch March 2022. So I'm going to show you the configuration again for Selenium. Let me close these projects. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new Java project. You can directly select Java project from here and name this project, let's say Selenium testing, and click on finish. Right? Let's expand this. We got this package folder, one of the same thing. If you go to the actual location of this project, you will find this thing is basically a folder. If I right click over here, say new, I need to create a new class. I'll name it as, let's say, test browser. You can give any name to this class. Check this, click on finish. A class created. Now, if I go to this location, how you go to this location? Alt enter is the shortcut, and you will see the location of your project. You can even open it from here. Click on this. You can see a folder open on your D drive workspace. And this is your workspace batch March 2022, which is a folder. And this is your project. If you open your project, this is your SRC folder. If you open it, you'll find your class over here. This is your class. This is your Java class, right? Test browser. So we'll be looking at the ID, that is Eclipse ID. And now I want to use Selenium over here. I want to automate my website. I want to use Selenium. So in order to use Selenium, I need to download the Selenium tool, not the tool, but the API. So from where we'll be downloading it, we'll be going to selenium.dev website. Let me close this. Selenium.dev. And we'll go to download. And we'll be downloading the latest stable version, that is 4.1.2. So we have already downloaded it. It is there in the downloads. You'll get this file and you need to import it to Eclipse, to your project. So how to do that? Over here. Guys, if you're doing it parallelly, I would recommend don't do it right now. You'll be getting this video. Then you can try doing the same configuration on your machine, right? So just right click on your project, go to build path, click on add external archives and select this jar file. Click on open. You'll see this jar file is added over here. If you expand this jar file, you remember yesterday we created a calculator jar. And when we expanded that, we have seen the calculator class and the methods that we have created, add, multiply, subtract. Now, if I expand this jar file, you will see hundreds of folders over here. These folders are called as packages. See, if you expand these packages, you will see n number of classes, right? Some package may have 2-3 classes, some package may have more than 10 classes. See, so many classes over here. And if you expand these classes, you will see so many methods inside these classes. Like I was talking about, there's a class called as Chrome driver. You will find that Chrome driver class over here itself in some of these packages. So in which package we'll get it? We'll get it inside org.openqa.selenium.chrome. See, this is the package. If you expand it, you will see the Chrome driver class over here. So if the class is here, you should be able to call it over here. You can create an object like this, Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver, what we did yesterday, like this. Because the class is there in the package. If this class is not there, you'll gonna get an error. Your Eclipse will not be able to understand what this Chrome is. But we are not going to look, we are not going to expand the jar file. We are not going to look the classes from this jar file. Where we are going to look? From the API documentation, from here, from the API doc. If you click on it, click on frames, you will see the Chrome driver class over here. These are all the classes that we were seeing in when we have expanded that jar file. So this is the Chrome driver class, right? So that is how you call this class. And that's it. We have configured Selenium. That is the only requirement. Java, Eclipse, and this jar file. Now let's hit the run button and see what happens, whether the browser is going to launch or not. Let's run it. See, the browser didn't launch. And we got something in red lines. These are basically called as exceptions. So we got some exception, some error. What is this exception? We need to read it. So it is saying the path to the driver executable. So as I told that, this class is not directly going to talk to your browser. It needs a executable file, the browser executable, that is this. Now we are sending the request from client. See, this is Java client. We are sending the request to the real browser. We cannot directly send it. There has to be a medium, which is provided by your browser vendor itself. These drivers are not provided by Selenium. These vendors are providing it. Microsoft has provided the Edge driver. Google has provided the Chrome driver. So we need to get it from their websites. So how to get it? We started with Chrome. So what we need to do, we need not to go to different vendor website. They've already integrated all the things on selenium.dev itself. So selenium.dev. Go to download and just go down on this page. You will see browser, platform supported by Selenium browser. Expand it. See all the browsers, Firefox, IE, Safari, Chrome. So Chrome is supported by Chromium project, which is like for Edge as well. We have Chromium for Edge as well, but forget about what Chromium is right now. Just go to the documentation part. So over here, you'll see this is WebDriver and automation, open source automation testing for web apps, and they actually provide all these versions over here. Go over here, all version available in download. No need to click on this. You'll see latest table release over here. Now this thing should match your browser version. If you have an old browser version, normally Chrome updates automatically, so we need not to worry about it. But it happens that even if I download this, if I click on this, based on Linux, Mac, Windows, we get a zip file. You just need to download this zip file. So once
Rahul, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have a question.
Yeah.
What if the Chrome driver, the version, if you're saying on the website available here is outdated? I mean, our browser has updated, but
that is what a challenge. Let's say my browser, I downloaded this one 99, right? Now in future the Chrome version changes to 100, 101, but I'm using this exe. Then my tests are not going to work.
Okay.
Then I need to again go to this website and download the latest exe. So this is one of the things that you need to make sure. At times it happens if your browser version is upgraded and you're using the old executable file, or maybe you're using the old version of Firefox and using the latest version of Firefox driver, then the test may not work. So you need to make sure the browser version and the executable version should be compatible, right? So these are some of the things which we need to do it manually, but we can automate this process as well. I'll show you in today's session how we can automate getting these things manually. So let us open this. Let us unzip it. Chrome driver Win3. And this is the file we got. Just copy this file, copy it, and paste it over here. That's it. Run your test now. See, the Chrome browser successfully launched. And the thing that we are getting in red, these are not errors now. These are just information, debugs, logs which are generated by this API. See, these are just information. These are not errors. So Chrome started successfully, right? And now we can use any method from this class. I can say driver.get, and I want to navigate to the website http waytoautomation.com. I want to get the title of this page, driver.get title. I want to print it. So this is the code that we have written yesterday as well. And then I want to quit, means close the browser, close the session. Let's run it and let's see. See, everything done. Browser launched, title printed, and then quit. Now, same thing, I want to make sure it works on Firefox as well. So I just need to change the class name. That's it. Firefox driver, and change this to Firefox driver. No need to do changes in the code. If you have written 1,000 lines of code, you need not to change the code based on the browser that you're using, right? Because Selenium is not interacting with the website language, or like if we talk about browsers as well, if I'm navigating on navigating to way to automation on Chrome, then on Firefox as well, the HTML part remains the same, right? It doesn't mean that I've designed way to automations like separately for Chrome, and then designed written a separate HTML for Firefox, written a separate HTML for Edge. So HTML remains same throughout the browser. So you need not to do any changes in the code. Just you need to switch your object. That's it. And let's run this and let's see if it works on Firefox. Again, we got the same error. Why? Because it is saying the path to driver executable must be set by WebDriver Gecko driver. Now it is looking for Gecko driver now, because we have changed the browser class. So Firefox is not going to interact with Chrome driver. It needs its own browser executable. So that will be getting it from, again, we need to go to selenium.dev, go to download, and then we need to go to the browser, and we need to go to the Gecko driver implementation supported by Mozilla documentation. And from here, the latest version is 0.30. So this version is not going to match your browser version. Browser version, I guess it's above 70. But what you need to do is to download the latest one from here. So where you're going to get it from, we go over here. I guess they've changed the website a little bit. Let's see where we get this browser executable. So they have Firefox. Okay, Gecko driver releases. Over here, this is 0.30. And if you go down, you will see these files over here. For Windows, 64-bit, 32-bit, Mac, Linux. So we'll be downloading this 64-bit because I'm on Windows 64-bit machine. So download this Gecko driver. And then extract it. See, we got the Gecko driver file. Copy this and paste it to your project. And now let's run it. Let's see. See, Firefox launches, navigates to way to automation, and then done, printed the title, right? So this is how you will be configuring multiple browsers. So this is what you should be doing in your coming week. At least this much code should be in a running condition on your machine, right? Because the major thing is the configuration part only. If the configuration is successful, then you should be able to automate websites easily. So you need to get JDK 1.8, Eclipse, Selenium jar, and the browser executable files. And then there are some additional configuration that we'll be doing today. So now we're going to come to that part. Now let's see, let's take up a scenario. Right now we are starting with Selenium. But I told you yesterday that Selenium is only 25% in your project. If you want to do Excel reading writing, you need to add POI jars. So what you need to do, you need to right click on your project, go to build path, add external archive. You need to add this POI jar. So you can do reading and writing with Excel. If you want to perform a database connectivity with, let's say, MySQL, you again need to download the MySQL jar, which will get it from a standard website called as mvnrepository.com. So all the jar files, even Selenium jar, instead of downloading it from Selenium website, you can download it from here as well. Just type Selenium. This is a repository, a centralized repository where all these open source projects, they commit their jar files, they check in their jar files. So see Selenium Java. You can download all previous versions as well. See, latest one is 4.1.2. And if you see the previous version 3 and starting from Selenium 2, which was launched in July 2011, you can see the launch date over here as well. So you can go over here and you can download this jar from here. See, this is the jar file. Same way, if I want to do a connectivity with MySQL, I'll go over here. I'll go to MySQL connector. I'll click on this and I'll download the jar file like this. And then if I had to add it to my project, just right click, build path, add external archive, and add it like this. Yeah. Any questions, guys? I guess someone is on unmute. Do you have any, Bhaskar, you have any question? There's a background noise coming from your end. Okay. So same way, we'll be using log4j, we'll be using Java Mail API, we'll be using TestNG, we'll be using n number of other APIs. And you can see with every project, they've got some version over here. Selenium version is 4.1.2, right? POI version is 5.2.2. MySQL is 8.0.28. And same way, every project has got its version. Now, what happens when Selenium next version comes into the market? 4.1.3 or maybe 4.2. So what I'll do, I'll remove this one and I'll download the latest one and I'll add it over here. Same way with other Java projects as well, they keep on changing their version. Very frequently, you'll find it. After this POI 5.2, maybe POI 6 comes into the market. Maybe MySQL 9 come into the market. So I'll be downloading these things manually. And in a project, we don't have 3-4 jar files. We may gonna have hundreds of such jar files. Now you just imagine, whenever there are new versions coming in, we just simply keep on removing the old one and adding the new one. And this is not only with this jar files. This is the same thing with the executable files. Whenever a new browser version upgraded, you need to remove the old executable driver file, and then you need to download the latest Chrome driver and latest Gecko driver. Right? And in a team, only not I am working on automation. There are other 50 testers working in the same team in automation. So everyone has to follow the same process. Now let us take up a scenario. This is very interesting scenario. Just watch it carefully. This is the process that we follow on a daily basis. Mostly you have seen development team following the same process. Even the automation team follows the same process. Let's say there are a couple of testers, automation test engineers working on a same project, right? So let's say we have a tester A, this one is tester B, this one is tester C, D, and E, right? So all these testers are working on same project. Now, this tester is writing some code to automate login window. He is automating, tester B is automating some user registration page. C is automating some email page, and so on, right? Everyone has got their own module to automate using Selenium, but all the testers are working in a same project. Now they are doing reading, writing from Excel as well. They're reading the data, validating the data from database as well. They're using Selenium. Everyone is automating through Selenium. So commonly they're using Selenium 4.1.2. Then they're using POI 5.2. Then they're using MySQL 8.0.29. They're using Java Mail API 1.6.2 and so on. And they have hundreds of such jar files in their project. Now, whatever code that I'm writing for the day, I have to commit that code in some centralized repository. I hope even as a manual tester, you must be familiar with something called as SVN, something called as GitHub, right? Like developers, if they are writing some code, at the end of the day, they check in that code into a centralized repository, right? I hope everyone is familiar with that, right? Maybe you have not used it, that is a different thing, but you know the process in development as well. Whenever we are writing some code, we have to commit that code to a centralized repository, so that it may happen like it may happen the code that I was writing, my machine got crashed, so the entire project is not going to go away with that crash. I can again restore the project from that centralized repository. So that centralized repository is something which is SVN, or which is GitHub, or any source code management tool that your organization is using. Most popular is GitHub, GitLab, all these are same, right? So what everyone has to do, whatever code that A has written, B has written, at the end of the day, they have to check in their code to a centralized repository. Right? This much process clear? Any doubt so far? Any doubt? Yep.
No doubt.
Okay, that's great. So everyone has to check in their code to a centralized repository, so that it may happen that let's say if this E tester, he leaves the job, he's not going to take away the code along with him. Or maybe there's a new tester joins the organization and joins your project. This is a tester F, he joins your organization and he want to see what is going on in the project. So what he can do, he can take a fresh checkout of the code and he'll get the entire code on his machine and he can go through that code, right? But whenever we are checking the code, we don't check in these jar files. No one checks in the jar. There's no process of checking in the jar file. Why? Because code isn't just KB. Jar files are in MBs. Code can be merged, right? In a project, A is working on login window, B is working on user registration. So at the end of the day, we can merge the code as well. So everyone has to check in their code so that it can be merged to a main branch, right? Forget about the branching concept right now, but just think about it. Everyone is checking in their code so that it should be kept at a common place. And very next day, what everyone does is they take a fresh checkout of the code so that everyone gets the updated code. And then they start automating their modules. This is how the process works. Now, what happens is all of a sudden, there's a new version update in Selenium. Selenium 5 came into the market. Let's assume Selenium 5 came into the market. So what I did, I removed Selenium 4 and I've added Selenium 5.0 in my project. And there were some new classes that were introduced in Selenium 5. What I did, I have started using those classes in my project. And at the end of the day, I've checked in that code. Other testers in the team are still using the old Selenium 4 jar. So what happens the next day when everyone is going to check out the code? They're going to get the updated code. They're also going to get the new classes that I have checked in from Selenium 5. But their project is not going to build. They'll start getting errors. Why? Because they're still using Selenium 4 and I have updated Selenium 5. Now, how they are going to fix their project? They'll be removing Selenium 4 jar file, because at time of check-in, I've mentioned in the comment. So normally when we do a check-in, we mention in the comment that what piece of code that we are checking in. Have we added a new feature? Have we automated something? Have we are we doing a bug fix? Other developer, if they're doing a bug fixing, they mention in the comment, right? This happens everywhere in the industry, not just with automation tester, not just with developer. Even people who have developed Selenium, they are following the same pattern. If you want to see what is there in 4.1.2, what was there in 4.0, what was there in 3. What updates that they are bringing with every release change, so you can watch it from here. From their website, they are maintaining this thing like whatever that they are adding in new releases. If you go to download, if you go to changelog, you will see the entire history over here. 4.1.2, they've added support for the browser versions 97. They've added all these things. 4.1.1, 4.1.0, starting from Selenium 2, you're going to find it. If you go down, you'll see Selenium 3, as well see alpha releases of Selenium 4, then Selenium 3, right? So you can figure out, I mean, whenever there is a new release, what change that they have done. Sometime it may happen that could be little technical terms added over here. Sometime you may be able to understand, okay, there's a problem in some Internet Explorer grid node which they have fixed. Now you can try using the new feature. You can try working on the bug that they have fixed. But this is the place from where you can read what all things that they are checking in to the new release. And same thing happens over here as well. Whenever you're checking in the code, you have to mention in the coding comments that, okay, I've added new Selenium 5 jar file. So next time when everyone is taking a checkout, they'll simply going to come to know, okay, a new jar file is added. We have to remove the old jar file. We have to add the new jar file. So what the entire team will going to do, they're going to fix their project because they were facing issues. Now, not as I told, it's not just about one jar file. Maybe this tester, he got a new version of POI 6.0. This tester updated Java mail to 2.0. This tester added some more jar files, log4j, some reporting jars, and number of other jars he has added. Now what happens? Now when everyone checks in their code, everyone start getting errors when they take a fresh checkout of the code. So how they are going to fix this? Are they going to navigate to different websites and they'll be downloading POI, they'll be downloading Java mail, they'll be removing this file, they'll be removing this jar file and adding a new jar file. So the entire day they're going to keep on wasting every day. This is the everyday process. So are they going to waste the entire day in just fixing their project? So this is what the biggest challenge when you're working in a big team where many automation test engineers are there. Everyone is writing their own code, checking in. Everyone is using different jar files. So you're going to come across this situation. You're definitely going to come across this situation. So how to fix it? If we talk about these jars, our project is dependent on these jar files. These jar files are also called as dependencies. We generally call them as dependencies because our project is dependent on Selenium. So this is a dependency of Selenium. Selenium 4.1.2 is also called as a dependency. POI 5.2 is also called as a dependency. Right? So we need something which can manage these dependencies. So there is a dependency management tool, plus it is also a build tool, which is called as Maven. So Maven is going to fix this issue, the dependency management part and the building part. What is building part? Forget about it right now. First, we need to fix this dependency thing. We want that we should not be downloading these jar files manually with every version update. They should automatically get downloaded to our machine. So how to do it? For that, we need to configure Maven now. It's very simple. It's very simple process. No coding involved, no tricky stuff involved. So just watch it step by step. I'm doing it same way you'll be doing it on your machines as well. Right? There's nothing like I don't know coding, so I'm not able to get what Maven is going to do. So don't worry about that thing. It's a very simple configuration. Like we did a configuration of Java, same thing you need to do it for Maven. Right? But just try to understand the process because upcoming sessions, when we start with Selenium, we'll be using Maven only in all our project. Once you're done with basic Java, you'll be starting directly with Maven project itself. So how this thing is going to work, what we'll do, we'll go to Google and simply type download Maven. So go to download Apache Maven. Maven is by Apache. It's an open source project. So what you need to do, you'll see a zip file over here, binary zip archive. You just need to download this zip file. Download it and unzip it. That's it. So you'll get it like this. I've already downloaded it. So kept it in my softwares. So this is the one that you're gonna get it. If you open it, you'll see these folders. Nothing installable. You're not gonna get any exe file, double click, install Maven. It's nothing like that. You'll see a bin folder over here. If you open it, you'll find Maven over here. So it means whenever you want to access Maven, you want to come to this location and then you can access Maven. But I want to access Maven from any location on this machine. So what I'll do, I'll configure Maven in the environment variables. Same way like we did it for Java. We want any application that need access of Java. So we have kept Java in the environment variables. Same way, we'll be keeping Maven in the global environment variables. Just copy this path. This is your Maven root path. Maven is inside the bin folder. This is the root folder. Go to your environment variable. Edit. Click on environment variables. Like the way we created Java home, create a new variable mvn_home. Paste this path. Click on OK. You will see a Maven home variable created over here. Go down and find the path variables. Edit it and type %mvn home %\bin like we did for Java home. That's it. That's the only configuration required. Maven is successfully configured. That is the only thing you need to do. Just close it. You want to make sure Maven is configured or not. Open up command prompt and type mvn --version. If you get this message, it means Maven is successfully configured. That's the only thing you require to do. Now go back to the Eclipse project. Let's go back to Eclipse. Let's close this project as well. Let's create a new Java project. Right click, say new. Instead of Java project, let's click on project now. We'll be creating Java project only, but we are going to not use a simple Java project. We are going to use a Java project which is more based on industry standards. So something, you'll see Maven over here. This is already there in your Eclipse. If you expand it, you see Maven project. Click on next. Check this, create a simple project. Click on next. Group ID, artifact ID. These are the two things which is very important for a project. Group ID is your, let's say, com.w2a, your domain. If it is Google, then you'll write it in reverse order, com.google. If it is seleniumhq.org, let's say org.seleniumhq. If it is way2automation.com, com.w2a. Artifact ID is your project name. I'm working on a project which is Selenium Maven project. Could be any name. You need to give your project name. Like we give over here Selenium testing. So I'm giving Selenium Maven project. Forget about other things for the timing. Click on finish. You will see another project created over here, Selenium Maven project. So there's the same project. This one is a Java project. This one is also a Java project. But when you expand this, you'll see SRC folder over here. One SRC folder over here. But when I expand this, you will see 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 SRC folder over here. Are there 4 SRC folders inside this project? No, there is only one SRC folder. See, if I go to the project location, you will see this is the project. If I open it, There's only one SRC. There are not 2 or 4 SRC. Let's go back over here. Along with SRC, you see 2 main, 2 test. If I open this, you will see 1 main, 1 test. Inside main, you will see Java resource. Inside test, you will see Java resource. If I open this, you will see Java resource inside main. Inside test, you will see Java resource. So why different folders? Why not just one SRC folder? This is how the things are organized in a big project. See, if I talk about general example, I can save everything directly on my C drive. My personal documents, my official documents, movies, songs, everything I can put it on my C drive. But will that be manageable? If I have to search any particular file, I'll be scrolling the entire C drive. So what I do, I generally create different folders. One folder for official, one for personal, one for movies, one for songs. And inside that as well, I can create a folder month-wise, January month, Feb month. And inside that, I can even create week-wise, day-wise, right? This becomes more manageable. So if I want to search for a particular file for a particular date, I can directly go inside that folder and search it. Same way, these are the folders. We have a folder called as main. We have a folder called as test. At times in development, a project when is created, testing is also done in the same project. So development code is written inside the main folder. And whatever unit testing that they're doing on that project or automation testing they are doing on that project will be written inside the test folders. So if we are writing automation code from Selenium, we'll be doing it inside this test folder. We're not going to do anything inside the main folder. Right? Folder, package, both are same thing. If I'm saying package, just treat it as a folder only. Right? So again, you'll see Java and resource. So when we are writing code, we use a lot of resources as well. Resources like Excel file, text file, notepad file, XML file, anything that is not Java will come inside this resource folder. Anything that is coding will come inside the Java folder. So if I want to create this class, if I want to use this class, I can directly use it inside Java, test Java, or I can create one more folder over here. Inside this as well, I can create one more folder like package. I'll name it as test cases, and I'll keep all my test cases over here. Which test case? This test browser. So I'm just going to copy this, copy, or maybe I can create a new class, call it as test browser. Same way like we did in the previous project, like this. And we got the same class. And I'll just copy paste this code. Whatever we have written over here, I'm going to copy this code, and paste it over here. Paste. That's it. But I'm getting error over here. Can anyone tell me why I'm getting error with this class? Why it is not working in this project?
Selenium is not referenced there.
Dependency is not there.
Dependency is not there, right? So we have not added Selenium. How will it understand what is Firefox driver? So if I do a mouse over, it says cannot be resolved to a type. It means we need this Selenium jar file. We have added in this project, but we have not added in this project. If I add it in this project by saying build path, add external archive, select this jar file, then you will see the errors are gone. But again, what I did, I manually added this jar file. When we are using Maven project, we are not going to add anything manually. So I'm going to remove it. Just a moment, it got stuck. So I'll go to build path, right click over here. Right click, build path, remove from build path. And we started getting the errors again. So how things will be added, how these jars or dependencies will be added. If you go to this, you see something called as pom.xml over here. this is the heart of your Maven project. Maven understands this pom.xml only. If pom.xml is not there in this project, Maven will not run, will not work. Let us open this and let's see what this pom.xml contains. See, this is the XML file. It contains your group ID we have created. Selenium project, Maven project we have created. Version of my project is 0.0.1. This is my project. Now, this project is dependent on n number of other projects. First, it is dependent on Selenium. So what I'll do, I'll add one tag over here, call it as dependencies. And inside this tag, what I'll do, I'll go to the website, which is called as MVN repository. This is Maven repository. And then I'll search for Selenium. I'll go to Selenium Java. And here I got 4.1.2, 4.1.1, whichever I want to use. Click on that. See, you got Maven dependency over here. Just copy this, paste it over here as it is. Now you can see this is the group ID of my project. This is the group ID of Selenium project. So initially website was seleniumhq.org. So in reverse order, they have written org.seleniumhq. Artifact ID is the project name. Their project name is Selenium Java. This is the version of their project. This is the version of my project. This is my project name. My project name, my project is dependent on this project. So I've added the dependency of their project. So this is dependency. Now, as soon as I hit save, you're gonna see in your project, all the jar files are added. See, multiple jar files are added for Selenium automatically. And the errors are gone. See, no errors over here. Automatically. You don't want to use 4.1, go over here, change it to 4.1.2. Hit save. In few seconds, you're gonna see it changed to 4.1.2. So how quickly it changed to 4.1.2. Not only this, if I want to use other dependency, other projects as well, I want to use log4j. So I'll just type log4j. I'll go over here and I'll go to 1.2.17, copy this, I'll paste it over here. I'll hit save. As soon as I hit save, you will see that this log4j jar file added. So where is log4j? Log4j added. See, anything you want to use. You want to use MySQL? MySQL. Go over here, click on this, copy dependency, paste it in pom.xml file. Hit save. As soon as you hit save, see MySQL added. So how fast these things are getting added? Is it going, okay, Ravi, the question is it going to remove the old jars? When you're changing the version from here, it is automatically removing the old jars. There is something which we can write. If I write latest over here, it is always going to take the latest jars. Irrespective of the version, it is going to take the latest one. So just you need to do is add these dependencies over here, right? And at the end of the day, when you're checking in the code, you're not going to check in the jar file, but you're going to check this pom.xml file. So the very next person who downloads this project, take a checkout of this project, will get the pom.xml file. And once he adds that project, automatically all the jars will gonna get synced on his machine. So he need not to worry about which version tester A was using or which version tester B was using. Whatever there is in the main branch, automatically all jars will gonna get deployed on his machine. So he need not to go here and there to download the jars. Right? So now the other question, how these jar files are getting downloaded very quickly. These are hundreds of jars. Within few seconds, they got downloaded. These jars are in MBs. So there is no magic that is happening. These jars are already downloaded on my machine. When you use Maven for the very first time, Maven creates a local repository on your machine. So that local repository inside your user profile, you'll go to your profile, you open it, you'll see .m2 folder over here. If you open this, you'll see a repository. This is what is created by Maven when I've configured Maven for the very first time. If I open this repository, you'll see so many packages, folders over here. If I talk about Selenium, that is inside org, Selenium org, then we have Selenium HQ. Where is Selenium? Org, Selenium. It must be over here. This is Selenium HQ. Open this, Selenium Java. Where is Selenium Java? This is Selenium Java. See, all these versions are already downloaded on my machine. 4.1.2, 4.1.1, 4.1.0. If I switch in between any of these versions, Maven is first going to look in my machine if the dependency is there. And if it founds that dependency, then it is automatically gonna sync that dependency to my project. If not, then it is going to download it from the centralized repository. So let's see which version is not there on my machine. If I go over here, if I again go to Selenium Java, and let's see 3.9.1. Do I have 3. See, I don't have 3.9.1. So what happens if I go over here and change this to 3.9.1? 3.9.1. Save it. Now it is not going to add them immediately. If I double click over here, you will see that it is getting downloaded. See, jars are getting downloaded from Maven repository. Although it got changed because I'm on a very fast internet connection. So you'll see that still it is being downloaded and changed to 3.9. Right? So that is how Maven it works. So I'll be changing this back to 4.1.2 because we'll be working on the latest Selenium 4 version. So all the jars are synced. Right? That is how Maven works. So this is what you need to configure on your machine as well. And now we forget about downloading the jars manually. Just mention the version in pom.xml and run your code. Let's see what happens. As soon as I run my code, will it gonna work or not? Again, I got this issue. The path to the driver executable. So I need that exe file. So that is a manual process, right? Again, go over here, get that Gecko driver copied, and then the browser is going to. But what happened when again the browser version changes? Again, need to download it manually. So there is one more Java project which is specially designed to get this executable file on the runtime, created by a different organization. If you search over here, which is called as WebDriver Manager, automated driver management for Selenium WebDriver. Click on this, get the dependency, copy this, paste it to your pom.xml file. So you'll get a WebDriver Manager project, jar file added, dependency added. You'll see it over here. In Maven dependency, you'll find the WebDriver Manager where it is added. This is added over here. So see, what are there inside this jar file? We have different classes, right? In Selenium jar file, we have a class called as Firefox driver. In WebDriver Manager jar file, we have a different class, which is called as WebDriver Manager. So if I write over here, WebDriver Manager dot, we want to work on Firefox. So I'll call Firefox driver and I'll say dot setup, that's it. This is the line that you need to add. Now run this project, whichever browser you are using, it is automatically gonna get the browser executable for that browser version and will run your code. See, no need to download the executable manually. Same thing with Chrome. I'll change this to Chrome driver. Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. Chrome driver. right? And change this to Chrome driver instead of Firefox. That's it. Let's run it. No need to manually download the Chrome driver exe from the Google website. It is automatically going to do that and will execute your test, right? So we have finally automated the process of downloading the jars and automated the process of getting the browser executable. Now we'll focus only and only on writing the code and automating the website. That's it. If you're done with this much configuration, you can start with your automation. Right? So for today, we are going to do only this much because there are many people who are new over here. We'll be starting with the Java part. In the next session, like whosoever have completed the Java, I want that everyone should configure, not even who have completed the Java, I want this process, everyone should follow, at least get some hands-on, like by writing a couple of lines of code, because that is how you will gain more confidence. Try to do this setup, try to get JDK 1.8, Eclipse, then download the browser executable first time manually, create a Java project and see if you're able to launch the browsers, and then try using this Maven, configure Maven, add this WebDriver Manager, and see if you are able to get the browser executable downloaded on the runtime and you are able to get all these jars build up on the runtime or not. So these are the things that you should be doing in the coming week, right? So that's all for today, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's session. And like if you guys have any questions, any queries, then we can discuss it right now.
Rahul, like when you downloaded the Selenium jar, it was a single jar. And when you downloaded it from Maven, it was multiple files. So what is the difference?
Absolutely. See, what happens is that single jar file is a combination of these multiple jars as well as the combination of Selenium hub. So instead of adding this single jar, I could have added, if I go to selenium.dev, if you go to download, there are two processes you can do manually, either add it from here or download the Java bindings from here. If you click on this, it is going to give you C Selenium Java 4.1.2.0. If I open this, let it download. Let me see if it is downloaded over here. Yeah, see, if I expand this, extract it, you will see all these jars over here. So manually, you can add all these jar files. And combinedly, you will see all these jars already added in that one single jar file. Right, but we are not going to do anything manually. We are going to just add this in pom.xml file, and all these jars that you see over here will be added automatically over here. These are the jars which we automatically got. So you can see Selenium Safari, Selenium support, you'll find it over here. Selenium Safari, Selenium support, all these jars.
Like Rahul, I'm trying to point to the question like in the previous versions, Selenium standalone server was there in the jar and the grid file was not there. Is there some difference like that
in
as well?
Previous version as well, these all files were there. Since beginning, Selenium 2 itself, there were two ways to download Selenium: either use one single jar or use the multiple jar files. So instead of like where we have added one single jar, so I can just remove this jar file. I'll go to build path and remove. Okay, it's not getting removed from. I'll go to configure build path, libraries, project. Why it is not showing over here? I'll just right click on the project, go to build path, configure build path, libraries. Okay, it is over here. So I'll remove this, and I'll click on add external jars. Instead of selecting one single jar file, I'll go to this folder and I'll select all these jars.
That's it. That's it.
Open it. Again, I'll click on this. I'll select everything that is inside the library folder. So these are the two ways. So either you add one single jar or add this. Now you can see no errors over here. You should be able to run this test manually adding the jar files without using Maven.
Correct. Correct. That's it. Rahul. Thanks, Rahul. Rahul, one more question. Like you showed the WebDriver class, WebDriver Manager class, which was downloading the driver exes. So does it download the driver exes and it automatically detects the browser versions?
Absolutely. See where the browser exes are added. It is added inside your Maven repository. If you go over here, you will find WebDriver, open this, Chrome driver, see different versions of Chromes. Based on the Chrome version, they are added over here.
Okay.
Right? From here, it gets the executable file. See Chrome driver. In every browser, you'll find the folder, you'll find the Chrome driver of that version.
Thanks.
Can I delete old versions? I guess old versions, you have to go over here and manually remove it. So even you can delete this repository manually as well. Like you go over here, delete it. And then when you again build your project, automatically these things gets added.
That's it.
Okay. So can you upload the video by creating folder batch March 2022? See, we will be starting with batch March, the batch that is going to start from the Java. So we'll be adding, starting that with the Java part, but these videos, you'll find it just above your batch. So you'll find it over here. Let me show you, I've already added it. So if you go down over here, you will see Selenium WebDriver Day 1. This is what we discussed yesterday. So at the very bottom, you'll find it. And Selenium Day 2, I'm going to add it over here. And then your core Java section that will be added that will start from, I guess, April itself next week. So I'm going to add it as batch April 2022. And then day 1 of Java will going to get started from there.
Sure. So, Rahul, one question. In the industry, what is the most common expectations on the frequency of executing automated test cases? Because in my prior experience, I worked on a couple of projects. We execute the automation test cases before the release. For example, we have a release regression. We get a week of testing. So in that time, we will set up all the data, we feed in the data to the Excel sheet, we'll run it. But in my current project, my manager came from a background where they run thousands and thousands of test cases every single day in different environments with the different servers. So he is expecting us to do the same thing here, which is very challenging. If you have to run thousands of test cases every day, you know the amount of effort required for data setup and all those stuff. So then he is even going to the next mile saying, okay, go and automate all the test data setup.
Yeah,
so
it all depends on which sort of company you're working. If you're working on service-based company or a product-based company, and what sort of timelines you have, what sort of budget you have, right? If he is expecting to execute thousands of test cases on a daily basis, then you may have ample amount of budget for automation and you have ample amount of time, and maybe you're working in a service-based industry, not on a product-based or a project-based, right? So if you there's a product which is like your in-house product where many clients are added to that particular project, and it's a never-ending project, then it makes sense that you can execute thousands of test cases, and it's a never-ending project, so the automation has to be there throughout the time, so it makes sense. So it completely depends on the requirements.
Yeah, but if you have to run every single day, the amount of time it takes for us to do the data setup, right? And automating the data setup is also a huge project in itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So data
yeah.
setup as in you must have done something like parameterization. So you must have data already created with multiple set of data that you can pass. Every time you're not going to change the data, I guess.
Yeah, there are scenarios where the same data can't be reused.
So if same data can't be reused, then you must have created multiple set of data that you can pass to your test case. So one by one, it is going to pick that data and then going to execute the next set of data automatically.
Yeah, right now my team has not automated the data setup part. So he's advising us to go and automate the data creation part also.
Yeah, that is handled with
Mm.
that parameterization stuff that we are going to study in TestNG.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, and there are a few test cases we already automated. The data setup also we automated around 270 test cases. We automated the data creation part or fetching part also, and we are running it through Jenkins on a regular basis every day. Putting into the schedule so it runs on parallel execution. We creating multiple jobs. It's running parallel every day, and he's asking us to go and make the data independent for the remaining 800 test cases also. So that's a deal we have.
Yeah, that is how the process actually works. So yeah, I mean, we'll be configuring all these Jenkins and we're going to see the scheduler as well. So once we are done with the Selenium part and the framework, then we'll be doing all this stuff.
Yeah, his point is regression testing has to happen every day, not just once before a release.
Yeah, because you want to make sure nothing breaks in the product.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just run regression every day.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Last question here. Usually we are asked in automation interviews, like how do you calculate the ROI? So what is this like?
ROI for what?
For automation, return on investment for automation.
See, again, it depends on the complexity of the project. I mean, if your project is dealing with like some financial data, or it is like a very critical, depends on like what clients are accessing it. So depending on that, I mean, if the automation is required, and like let's say if we don't automate that stuff, and if something we rely only on manual testing, right? So manual testing, if like let's take up a scenario, what happened with me yesterday. I mean, like the portal on which you were accessing videos, this is like a production build only, right? And all of a sudden all the videos stopped, and people started getting messages that the instructor has actually removed the videos. So this was like a bug in the system, right? And what I did, I created an automation script. I thought of fixing this, but I mean, the issue was like I have to go to each video and I have to re-encode it, just because the bug happened in the system. So I've taken these services from a third-party vendor who is actually in US, and for this weekend they're not available. So one of the thing is that I have to wait for 2 days, and then like I have escalated the issue to them, and they come on the Monday morning, and then they're going to see the issue, then they're going to fix it, and then the videos will going to start playing. The other message I was getting that either I should go to each video and encode it manually. So there were around more than 3,000 videos. So if I started doing manually, or if I asked my team to do it, then the whole Saturday, Sunday, maybe another week might have gone in fixing that. So what I did, I created an automated script, and that script helped me to fix the issue in just one single day. So that is like, you can say that, I mean, this is what you can calculate it for the ROI as well, right? So that is where the importance of automation.
Like means I was asking, like there are some industry standards to calculate ROI, like what manual testing efforts was invested and what output you got, or any template being followed in the industry for ROI automation. for
there,
ROI calculation?
I guess there is no standard template. This again depends on the requirement only. The template is created. But let me see if I have any template handy with me. I can share that thing with you.
Okay. Thanks, Rahul.
Sure. How much DevOps content concepts are required for automation? See, DevOps is majorly we use Jenkins, CI, CD, Git, GitHub. So these things are the one that we use in automation as well. So these are the things which an automation test engineer should also be familiar with. Right? These days, even we are executing stuff on cloud, on AWS. Right? So it's not like as an automation tester, you should be doing the AWS certification. But you should know like the process of executing the build on the cloud platform as well, on Sauce Lab, on different cloud platforms are there, AWS is there. So the basics of all these things are actually required to like for an automation engineer to have knowledge on these concepts as well. Not very in depth. That is for that we have dedicated DevOps engineers for that. So who's responsible for setting up all these things. So, but as an automation engineer, since I'm executing, I'm using Jenkins, I'm using Git, GitHub, I'm using AWS. So I should be familiar with basics of all these things.
Sure, thanks, Rahul. So when we execute the test cases in Jenkins or cloud server compared to our local execution, we see that the speed is little bit less compared to local versus Jenkins or cloud servers.
See, local is always fast. I mean, local is like you're executing it on the same machine.
Yeah.
Right?
So we need to handle all these sync issues, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sure.
All right, guys.
Next class would be divided. Like we will get
yes, you'll be getting
links.
the meeting invites for the upcoming Selenium as well as the Java sessions. We'll be forming up a separate group for core Java. The people who have already completed Java, they're already added in the group. So same group will be continued for Selenium. For the new people, we'll be creating a WhatsApp group for the new batch. And then I'll be forwarding that WhatsApp group information and the meeting invites. Meeting invites will be shared for both Selenium as well as Java in the group. So you guys will be receiving that in the coming week.
Okay, thanks, Rahul.
All right. So thanks a lot, guys. And rest of there are some people attending today at the demo session as well. So you guys can visit way2automation.com and just visit this lifetime membership package and get yourself enrolled from here. So once done, you'll be included into the group and will be receiving the meeting invites. So that's all, guys, for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed these sessions.
What is the link for next week?
I'll be forwarding it to your email ID. Don't worry.
Sure,
Next week you'll receive it. All right. So thank you so much, guys, for joining.
Thanks, Rahul. Thank you. It was amazing. It was great.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks.